It was a small thing that ended my marriage. A calendar notification on a laptop left open on the kitchen counter. 3 words, D and M, check-in. I knew before I even clicked it. Marcus and Diane had been like family to my husband and I for nearly 4 years, practically from the moment we moved into the neighborhood and they knocked on our door with a bottle of wine and a casserole. The 6 of us, counting the kids, were inseparable. Our children were the same ages and the same classes, on the same sports teams. We cooked out together on weekends. We rented beach houses together in the summers. I genuinely considered Marcus one of my closest friends, and my husband Daniel and Diane were thick as thieves. 4 months ago, my world collapsed without a single warning sign. Daniel had left his work laptop open on the kitchen counter, and I noticed a calendar notification, a recurring one, for something labeled D and M check-in. Curious and then immediately uneasy, I dug a little deeper. What I found was a trail of messages, not hidden particularly well, between Daniel and Diane that went back nearly 5 months. Not just messages, hundreds of them. Declarations, plans, a whole secret life constructed silently inside the one we had built together. I pulled our phone records and confirmed what I already knew in my gut. On holidays, when both families were crowded into our living room, when we were all laughing and passing plates around and the kids were chasing each other through the halls, they were texting each other from opposite ends of the couch. On the night I thought Daniel was at a regional sales conference, he had been 2 towns over at a hotel with Diane. The mundane cover stories were endless and, looking back, embarrassingly thin. When I confronted Daniel, he didn't try to lie. He sat down across from me at the kitchen table, folded his hands, and told me he had fallen in love with Diane and that it had been coming for a long time even if he hadn't seen it. He told me they had already spoken to a lawyer. He told me he was sorry, in the flat and careful way people say things they have rehearsed. They had apparently been discussing the logistics of leaving their respective marriages for weeks. Who would take which apartment, how they would handle the school pickup schedule, how they would eventually break the news. A mutual therapist who had been seeing them together was supposed to help them figure out how to deliver the blow as painlessly as possible. Jennifer, Marcus's wife, and I later agreed that the therapist's strategy was almost certainly a formality, and that they had been planning to manufacture some separate, unrelated reason to end both marriages before conveniently finding their way to each other. Daniel moved out 6 weeks ago. I'm not going to pretend I handled it gracefully. I didn't. I called in sick to work for 3 days straight and didn't leave the bedroom. I was not a person who had ever been knocked flat before. I was raised to be practical, to be resilient, to fix things. There was nothing to fix here. But I'm also not someone who absorbs a wrong and lets it go unremarked upon. And this particular wrong had an opening. Marcus, as it happened, was 2 years into a prominent position as a partner at a well-regarded regional architecture firm, a position he had climbed toward for over a decade. He had a reputation in professional circles that he had spent years carefully cultivating. Diane, meanwhile, had recently been shortlisted for a significant arts grant through the State Cultural Council. She had submitted a large body of work and had strong institutional backing. Everyone in our social circle knew the grant was essentially hers. She had even started telling people about the project she planned to fund with it. The affair, I realized, created a very particular problem for both of them. Marcus's firm had a conduct policy, vague in some places, pointed in others, regarding professional behavior in relationships that could embarrass the partnership. Diane's grant application had been supported by a letter of recommendation from a colleague who was also, as it turned out, a personal friend of Marcus's. The whole arrangement was a tangle of conflict and exposure, just waiting for someone to pull a thread. I didn't go to anyone directly. Instead, I let it be known to Daniel, casually, in the middle of a conversation about the kids' school schedule, that someone in our extended social circle was furious about what had happened and was considering going to Marcus's firm with what they knew. I said I had tried to talk them out of it, but couldn't promise anything. I watched Daniel's face go still. Within 48 hours, Marcus had preemptively gone to his managing partners and disclosed the relationship himself, apparently calculating that getting ahead of it was better than being blindsided. The partners disagreed with his assessment of the situation. He was asked to take an indefinite leave. The leave became permanent within a month. The grant committee, once the story began circulating in the small and gossipy world of regional arts funding, quietly informed Diane that her application was being reconsidered. It was eventually awarded to someone else. The day she found out, we happened to cross paths at the school pickup line, and she looked like she hadn't slept in a week. A little while later, once the dust had settled into something permanent, I told Daniel the truth. There was no furious friend. There never had been. Just me, a calendar notification, and 4 months of barely controlled rage. Word traveled the way it does in a town like this. Marcus, who had been a fixture at every neighborhood gathering, every local fundraiser, every pub quiz on Thursday nights, essentially vanished from public life. He sold his car, he moved into a rental on the other side of the town. Diane quietly withdrew from several community organizations she had been heavily involved in for years. Their social world, which had overlapped almost entirely with mine and Jennifer's, contracted sharply and fast. They are, as far as I know, still together. Jennifer told me recently, half laughing, half incredulously, that they had adopted a dog together, which feels about right for two people trying to manufacture signs of stability. The months after Daniel moved out were genuinely the hardest of my life. I'm not someone who asks for help easily, and I resisted it longer than I should have. My mother flew in and stayed for 2 weeks, and I argued with her every day about whether I was fine, while clearly not being fine. My kids were confused and sad, and I had to be a functioning parent while I was barely a functioning person. There was a period of about 6 weeks where I'm not sure I was entirely safe, and I say that plainly because I think it's important to say plainly. I got help. I'm still getting help. I'm still here. Eventually, I found my way back to something resembling ordinary life. I started running again, which I had abandoned years ago. I went back to a ceramics class I had dropped when the kids were small. I started laughing at things again, which sounds minor but felt enormous the first few times it happened. I've been seeing someone for about 14 months. He's thoughtful and unhurried and makes me coffee exactly the way I like it without being asked. We take things at whatever pace feels right. I don't know what it becomes, and for the first time in a long time, I'm comfortable not knowing. Jennifer and I are still close, not in the desperate, crisis-bonded way we were in the beginning, but genuinely close. She comes to my ceramics show in the fall. I help her with her garden in the spring. We don't talk about Marcus and Diane very much anymore because there isn't much left to say. Daniel and I communicate about the kids and not much else. It's civil and cold, and that's the best available outcome, so I'll take it. Life is quieter now than it was. Some nights are still hard, but most mornings are okay. And okay, I've come to understand, is genuinely enough.
What do you think about this story? Did he handle it the right way, or did he go too far with the revenge? Drop your opinion in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you have a story of your own that you'd like to share, send it to us at brnsend@gmail.com. You'll find the link in the description below. Don't forget to like and share if this story moved you.